definitely a behind the scenes of Today with Pastor Jay. I'm literally in my car at a Hardee's. And to prove it, I have a good old-fashioned Hardee's chocolate shake that I had to have for the show. So today we're going to be talking with Jill Crawford. Guess
Hello.
what, Jill? I forgot the name of your organization already.
Flagler County
Flagler
Mental
County
Health
Advocates.
Advocates.
Mental health. Okay. All right. Hopefully I won't forget that. I have a pen somewhere in my purse. I'm on my way back from Tallahassee. This is my second trip to Tallahassee. This week, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've done this, but Flagler County Mental Health Advocates. Flagler County Mental Health Advocates. Thank you, Jill. All right. Mark's in the studio. He's going to hold it down because he's the professional. He's the guy that does it all. He's the wizard. All right. I'm ready, Mark, whenever you are.
You are now tuned in to Today with Pastor Jay on WNZF News Radio, where we discuss inspiring and informative news. And now here's your host, Pastor Jerlyn Denny.
Good morning. Good morning. Wake up and oh my goodness, talking about a behind the scenes for those of you who follow me on social media by way of YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. If you were seeing my video right now, you'd see that I was in my car. I'm in my car. My guest is in the studio. It's kind of like a reverse than what I normally would do. I'm on my way back from Tallahassee, and of course, I'm a little bit extra every now and then, and today is just one of those extra days. But before I begin and introduce my guest, I just want to thank everyone that came out for the Survivor Speak National Healing Vigil Day that we had on yesterday. You know, for the fifth year, hundreds of crime survivors across America, they marked the beginning of National Crime Victim Right Week by gathering, you know, with state and local leaders for a national day of action. And during the annual Survivor Speak Healing Vigil Day of Action, survivors from communities that's most affected by violence promote a more effective vision of shared safety that includes more crime prevention and greater support for survivors, their families, and less reliance on incarceration. So I was honored this year to hold the first healing vigil in Palm Coast. So at the event on yesterday, survivors, they shared their stories, they honored loved ones. You know, it was just a powerful healing circle. You know, we call upon state, local, and national policy makers, you know, to just really come to action, to implement new safety solutions based on prevention and healing. So we're excited about that, you know. We do have one trauma recovery center here in the state of Florida. We need more than that. But we do include and we invest in trauma recovery services program for youth, mental health, and drug treatment and rehabilitation. But so today we're going to talk a little bit about mental health with Flagler County Mental Health Advocates and the one and only mental health advocate in Flagler County. Well, I'm sure there's more than one, but I'm going to say Jill Crawford is one of the ones that not just advocate for those with mental health, she suffers from mental health illness herself. So I want to thank you, Jill, for coming on the show, being transparent, and talking about your story. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. And I just wanted to say, walking into the healing vigil, I walked in as a victim and then I left as a survivor.
You know, I'm going to tell you, that was very impactful to hear you say that, because we spoke and you said, you know, I walked in as a 16-year-old rape victim and I walked out a survivor.
Yes.
That was powerful. What impacted you so much when you think about healing and sharing your stories and being around others that are survivors? How does that help you heal?
I think being around other survivors makes you be able to talk about it more and realize that you're not alone. I think being around other survivors is important to the healing process. The healing process takes the rest of your life. It's never ending. But I feel, though, you know, now at 47 that I've healed from the rape. But when I went to the healing vigil, I walked in as my 16-year-old victim self. And like I said, when I walked out, after talking to other people and praying, I feel like a survivor. So it's just a different mindset.
And when you think about investments, definitely more investments in trauma recovery, prevention, and rehabilitation. and less spending on prisons and jails, we have so many people in our jails and in our prisons dealing with mental illness. They're dealing with mental illness. They're not able to get the services that they need. And out here in our communities, there are so many individuals dealing with issues like that, and there aren't any resources. Fortunately for you, you just kept going and kept going, but it was hard and challenging for you to find resources, yes?
It really was. When I moved here in 2016, I found a psychiatrist, the one and only psychiatrist in Flagler County that dealt with Medicaid or indigent patients.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2019, all of a sudden, they closed their doors. There was no
Oh, my goodness.
notice, there was no nothing. And all I could think about was the people, not only like myself, that were getting mood stabilizers and things like that, but if they're getting the Klonopin and the Xanax and the barbiturates, all of a sudden we're going to have a community wide withdrawal. So when they shut their
Mm.
doors, I called SMA. I called everybody I could think of at County Commission. And I called as I went to meetings and everything because I knew that the people that were there showing up were all of a sudden just not going to have a doctor. So that
Wow.
was a shock to me that a doctor's, and I never got my records. They just closed and disappeared. I never got my records.
Well, here's something I don't think people realize. When it comes to mental health, it's not like you have a broken finger or a broken leg and you can go to another doctor. Mental health is specific to that person. There's some similarities. You know, it's not like you can set it and go. The medication doesn't work for everyone. It's not like you just give somebody a Tylenol, right? So
Right.
when you talk about psychiatrists and therapists shutting down, it it affects everything. It affects everyone. You can't just pick up and go to another therapist or pick up and go to another psychiatrist. You have to start over. I've walked with people through mental health illnesses that have gone from doctor to doctor, and every time they go to a new doctor, you have to start over. You have to
Mm-hmm.
start over telling your story. You got to start over. Even with medication, sometimes certain doctors like certain meds, other doctors like other medications, and then there's often, unfortunately, a chance to be misdiagnosed with mental health illness. So this is a serious problem when there aren't any doctors, there aren't any resources in the community.
There is such a long waiting list. And right now, the local community would suggest that you call Stuart Marchman to get in to see a psychiatrist. However, they do right now have a long waiting list. At the end,
Mm.
I'm going to give out the resources that I give out on my line. I have a warm
Mm-hmm.
line where people call me after they've been through all the packets that they get of trying to find resources. And I have found some since 2019 that have worked very well for the people that I've sent them to. So at the end, if you want to grab a pen and paper, I'll give you the phone numbers and the names of my resources that I give out.
Okay, so let's talk about your journey, your particular journey. So everything was shut down, everything was closed. Then what?
I went to Stuart Marchman and I was placed
Mm-hmm.
on the waiting list. And then luckily, we had just gotten insurance, so I was able to go to St. Augustine and get a psychiatrist.
So when you
Um,
say waiting list, how long? How many people you estimate was probably on this waiting list? Because I
it
hear this
was it
all
was
the
one
time
year.
from people.
It was a
A
1 year.
year waiting list.
Yes,
So
yes.
I want the listeners to understand this, that when you're dealing with mental health issues and you're on a particular medication and your doctor closes down or shuts down or whatever the case may be, you can't get your meds anymore because another doctor is not going to prescribe you medication,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
You don't get any, you can't just jump in. So you're on this waiting list for a year. So if you're not receiving your meds, then you go through all types of side effects and withdrawals from the medication. Then you're dealing with the mental health issue over and over and over
And
and
often
over
they'll tell
again.
you to go to the emergency room. However, the emergency room will often give out like a 30-day supply of a medication and then refer you
Hmm.
to Stuart Marchman to continue
To
your
get on a
treatment.
waiting list,
Yes.
to get on a
Yes.
waiting list, pretty much,
So it's very
right?
difficult in the Flagler County area. It was very difficult to find a psychiatrist that would deal with Medicaid and indigent patients. And what I like to say is 100% of the population could benefit from mental health and wellness, Everybody could benefit from awareness of mental health and wellness. 15% have something in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that psychiatrists use to identify diagnoses, for example,
Mhm.
anxiety or something like that. Only 4% have a serious mental illness like that affects your daily life, like bipolar or
Mm.
schizophrenia. And that's where I come in is I suffer from bipolar disorder. However, I am well managed and stable and I live a happy, healthy, quote, normal life. Um,
Mm.
Happy and healthy, I would say. Back in my younger days, I grew up with two parents in a household and two younger brothers. It was a happy household, but Jill's nerves. I always had Jill's, we referred to it as Jill's nerves. And the word
Mhm.
panic attack hadn't been discovered in 1982, you know? So
Gotcha.
finally, by the 90s, when I was 19, I finally went to a hush hush psychiatrist and he diagnosed me as manic depressive, which is now called bipolar. So throughout the years, I've
Wow.
struggled being on different medications because back in the 90s, it was trial and error. Now there's a cheek swab that the psychiatrist can do, and it will put every psychiatric medication in a green, yellow, or red box that's based on your
Mhm.
own DNA, what would work for your own DNA. So that was an
Wow.
amazing, yeah, that was amazing. All of my medications when I went were in the red box.
Wow. Now that, you said something, we've got to take a break and we'll come back and talk about that. You talked about being on your medication, how you're able to live a normal life, as normal as you possibly can. I think there's probably a lot of judgment and a lot of people, think, oh, you have mental health issues, that you need to always be in a psychiatric hospital, or you're dangerous in society. Let's talk about some of those myths and some of those lies when we come back. Don't go anywhere, guys. You're listening to Today with Pastor Jay. All right, guys, this is a real behind the scenes. I'm in my car in Lake City drinking a beautiful chocolate shake from Hardee's. Don't tell anybody. My daughter told me today, she said, Mom, there's no bread in the milkshake. Guess she was trying to encourage me. All right, so I want to go back to the testing, but before we get to the testing, you said something about being able to live a normal life. And so when we come back in from the break, I want to talk about that because a lot of times people are judging those with mental health illness and believe they can't live a healthy, normal life.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, Mark, I'm ready. Welcome back. Welcome back. You're listening to Stay with Pastor Jay, and this is an on the road, behind the scenes. I am in my car. Hopefully, you don't hear that truck that's going by. And my guest is in the studio there at WNZF News Radio. She's in the studio, which is none other than Jill Crawford, a huge advocate for mental health here in Flagler County, and she suffers herself from mental illness. Before the break, Jill, you said some great things. We'll get to the testing in a moment, but you also said something about living a normal, happy life, as normal as it possibly can with your medication. There's a huge myth out there. And have you been judged because you have mental illness and people think, oh, you're too crazy to have a regular life? You have an issue or a problem? I mean, I know I'm not just saying that. I'm sure you've had to deal with some things like that.
There's a huge stigma with mental
Mm-hmm.
illness. And let me be clear that the untreated mentally ill, severely mentally ill, the 4% I'm talking about, the bipolar schizophrenia, the untreated mentally ill are more violent than not.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Violence to self counts. A lot of times, a schizophrenic or a bipolar person suffering will consider suicide. Um,
Mm.
Violence as far as acting out to other people when they're in their moments. However, recovery is real and hope is real. It took a long time, it took a lot of trial and error, but we found the right mix for me. And my psychiatrist told me it's like a recipe for pancakes. If you don't add one of the ingredients, the pancakes aren't going to turn out right. You take
Mm.
what you're prescribed once you find the right mix. And it's a life changer. It allowed me to live on my own. At one point, I was at my parents' house living in my bedroom, and we never thought I'd live on my own. And here I am now.
Mm.
I'm married, I'm raising a family. My husband's gone a lot, he's a truck driver. And I live the day to day life as a happy, healthy person. I'll never, ever not have the diagnosis. I will always have the mental illness. And yes, it is shameful in the beginning to admit that because there's a lot of stigma that a lot of people will look at you like you're crazy.
Mm, mm, wow. And that's challenging to go through, especially when you need the support, right? You need the support of your family, your friends, your loved ones, because this is an issue that affects the entire family. Mental illness affects everyone. It just doesn't affect the person that's dealing with it. It affects the family. So I want to applaud you for coming out, talking about your mental illness and what you're doing in the community. So let's focus on that, what you're doing in the community. You do a lot in the community. People call you up all the time. You have a hotline number. What's your number?
So our hotline number is 386-320-3828. And that goes directly to my phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's the number that we have put on the side of our RV that we drive around and park in parking lots. We're going to be at First Friday in May, and we're going to be at Touch a Truck on May 27th.
Mm-hmm.
We put that out there, and then people will just call me that are at their limit, and I can advocate for them. If they don't have the right words to say, but they need to call a doctor, I can call the doctor with them on three-way, begin the conversation, and then they can flow in with what they need help with. Or if they need help with food stamps and a homeless issue, I can help them with the proper paperwork or getting them connected to resources. The main thing I do, though, is connect people with mental health resources.
Mental health resources are
Mm-hmm.
extremely important. And when we first started this, you said you had some numbers that you want to give away because there's a lot of people out here that don't know where to go, don't know what to do. And Flagler County is a small community when it comes to serving the mental health that's within our county.
Yes.
However, you've been able to navigate this and come up with some real ones. Occasionally, the resource lists are given out. We've got these resource lists that's circulating, and they're wonderful. But you call them, you can't get any services, right?
It was a
You
lot of
call them,
dead
and
ends.
it's a lot of dead ends, a lot of issues, a lot of problems, and you have navigated that. But before you start giving us some numbers and some lists, I want to remind everyone, if you're dealing with mental health issues and problems, give that number again to call you directly. What was that number for your warm line?
386-320-3828.
Okay, and we're going to give some other numbers. You also talked about your medications and how your doctor was able to treat you in a particular way. Can we talk about that treatment just once more?
Sure, sure. It was a lot of trial and error in the 90s. And actually, in the 90s is when Klonopin and Xanax came out. And for what should have been a 6-week crutch, the
Mm-hmm.
Klonopin should have been used for 6 weeks as a crutch for me to get over the severe anxiety because I had so many diagnoses along with the bipolar in the beginning. However, back then, I was on the Klonopin and the Xanax for 10 years. And I became a zombie and I didn't know my body was addicted. And I went to the mental hospital in 2004 and I was having suicidal ideation and I was scared I was going to do it. And they immediately took me off of everything. When I went into the hospital, I was on 16 different psychiatric meds, 16 different ones.
Mm.
And they took me off of everything. I withdrew in the same room with the heroin addicts. And 3 days later, they started me on a new regimen of only 3 medications. And within 5 days, I was out. Um, and that was one of the hardest things I've ever been through. But while I was there, I really got reconnected with Jesus, and that brought me through the mental institution.
Amen.
hmm
Amen.
That was,
Amen.
I asked to see a
Whew,
chaplain. I asked to take communion. I was there all the time with the chaplain.
I'm gonna tell you, if it was not for Jesus, I don't know where I'd be. I make the statement that I know I have major issues, and when people see me, they go, how do you manage? How do you know? Especially losing a child or going through anything, whether it's mental health illness or grief. If it was not for Jesus, I'd be out of my mind. If the Lord showed me myself, I know I have issues. I know I have mental health issues. I'm under the anointing. If you see me acting or talking straight. So I kind of get that, Jill. I
Yes.
really do. I understand your faith, how it really can help, and your faith can connect you, and your faith can encourage you. So thank you for sharing that. So let's give out some numbers. So what's some good numbers for mental health?
So,
Where
yes,
can
I
people call?
feel
Especially, how about, let's give a scenario like I don't have any insurance.
Right.
Where do I go if I don't have any insurance, right?
Yes. Okay. Well, all of these numbers are going to be used for people with no insurance or Medicaid or Medicare. Um,
Wow. Are
yes.
you serious?
Since 2019, I have found these places. So, the first place, if you are a veteran, the place you can go if you're at risk of becoming homeless or you are homeless is call Lisa at Changing Homelessness at 386 281 2058. If you're
I know Lisa. She's amazing.
Lisa Cancel, yes, she's wonderful.
I love her. She's a
Um,
sweetheart.
Now, if you're struggling with mental health and you need to see somebody, a psychiatrist or a psychologist, there is Flagler Access Center down in Bunnell, and the front desk is 386 236 1720. Now, the place I send most people for counseling, this is a licensed clinical social worker. She can prescribe some meds. It's at AZA Health, and their phone number is 386 246 3954. And then the last place I want to recommend is Phoenix Group. And they have helped a lot of people with mental illness that I have sent them, and they have programs for indigent and Medicaid. And their number is 386 597 2861. And as always, you can call SMA as well. Their number is 800 539 4228.
I want to thank you so very much for sharing your story and your resources and your journey along with your faith, Jill. You are amazing, and I'm so encouraged by you.
Thank
For
you.
those of you who are listening on the line, and you're going, I didn't get any of these numbers. Well, guess what? On Monday after 9 o'clock, you can go to todaywithpastorj.com and click on podcast, and guess what? Listen to this show all over again. You can fast forward it, rewind it, and get all those numbers. Or you can always go on our social media page, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and look for Today with Pastor J. The video will be on there. Thank you, Jill. I appreciate you. And let's give your number one more time.
It is 386 320 3828.
All right. Well, God bless you guys. You know what I say? Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow's not promised. What are you going to do today? Today, you're going to encourage others and help others in your community that's dealing with mental illness. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Great job, Chica.
Yay.
Yay. Thanks, Mark. I think this went over really well.
Yeah.
I think this one did good.
That flowed good.
Because I was thinking, it really did. You did an excellent job. And I was able to talk about, someone came on, there was a message that you didn't get to see, Jill. It said, thanks for being brave. A mind is a beautiful thing. Very informative and helpful.
That's wonderful.
So I just wanted to encourage you. You already got somebody that's telling you how amazing you are, and how brave you are. So that is super cool. All right, let me get back on the road. I just extended, I think I've got an hour and a half left before I get home.
Okay. Be safe.
Love you, Jill.
Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.